A little bit ago, sometime last year, I decided to jump out the window and purchase a film camera. It was kind of a interesting path to go down, especially coming from a digital photographer first. There were a little bit of, it's not much, but there were some things that I had to relearn, and I had to sort of draw the dots between the two. Mainly just the ISO, mainly just getting reacclimated with manual focusing without the lack of peaking, right? So that's interesting. But even what film camera do you choose? And there's so many options out there. There's things from Canon that are beloved. There's things from Nikon that are beloved. Olympus is in there. Like Sony was in there at one point. There's so much. And then there's all these weird brands that don't necessarily exist anymore that are still in there. And in between, Pentax, right? And then there's well, what are you shooting? You shooting half frame, 35 millimeter, medium format? Like, there's a lot. My research led me to this guy. This is the Nikon F2. I originally had a Nikon F, and I swapped it out for the F2 because I quite liked the digital exposure that we had in the camera, in the viewfinder. Because other than that, I'd have to walk around with a light meter. Not that there's anything wrong with that. You know, if I could make my life a little easier, I'm all for it. But nonetheless, I landed on the F2, and I still owe you guys a video about the experience shooting film and being really immersed in the analog experience. I quite like it. Do I like it enough to start, gathering chemicals and have a dark room in the house? No, but I do have a photography shop that's close enough that they develop, and I think they charge, like $20 to develop and then an extra 20 for the digitals. I'm not mad at that. So I reached this nice cadence where I would grab this guy. You got 24 shots, right? And when we go out with the family, I would take my digital camera, whatever that may be for the day or the event. And then I would also have this. And I would probably, if I shot, let's say 50 or 60 photos with my digital camera, this guy would come in and I'd get maybe 2 or 3. And I found that cadence really provided a nice summary of the day in a very meaningful way, a very different way, right? Because when I would get back the actual photos, and it's like, wow, there's something special, there's something magical. And I guess you could say, because it's tangible, you can touch it, you can flip it, you can pass it to the person next to you. There's something about physical photographs. There's definitely something magical about it. So yeah, enjoying this experience, I think was an eye-opening one. It taught me a lot about my journey as a photographer. It taught me, it gave me validation as to how much work I put into understanding the nuances of this craft. Because my transition to film wasn't really that difficult. And so because a lot of the learning curve wasn't there for me, being acclimated to film became fun. And I was really just able to enjoy the entire process. Now, a friend have loaned me this I've had it for a few weeks now. And this is the Nikon ZF. I like this camera. I like this camera a lot. And you guys know I like Fuji. I'm quite fond of Fuji as a brand. But there's some things that make Fuji very special to me. It's the craftsmanship. It's the attention to detail for the photographer. And I'm talking about tactility. I'm talking about how the dials feel when you're switching. I'm talking about where the placements of the dials are. I'm talking about having functionality exist on the dials, right? Like, there's so much about the Fuji ecosystem that they do with every one of their cameras. I think they knock it out of the park every time. Doesn't mean it's perfect, but I like what they generally do. And then there's the Nikon ZF. This, from what I can tell, is Nikon's return to form. And I didn't quite get it, but I was sitting around one day just staring at the camera like, you make me want to go out and create, which is something that literally only Fuji has been able to do for me. And then it was this familiarity with this camera, and then it just blindsided me like, wow. The Nikon ZF and my Nikon F2 are literally the same camera. The feel is the same. The tactility is the same. The weight is the same. Like I couldn't believe the realization when I had it. Like, wait, hold up. Is this like 30 or 40 years? I haven't done the math, but I believe this F2 is from the 70s. So yeah, it's even more than that. This thing was released like 3 years ago. Like, I was gobsmacked by that realization. And then I started to like search. I started to look around to see how special this was. Okay, so let's dig into it. We have the DNA. Nikon was able to keep the DNA from the F series of a camera from the 70s to today. And I mean, it looks the same, it feels the same. In some ways, it operates the same. This surely has to be something special, right? And then I started looking at Olympus, because when I was looking for film cameras, you know, the EMs or the OMs, EMs, I forget, Olympus was there. And I'm a huge fan of Micro Four Thirds. So it was fun to see that Olympus had a film offering that was pretty serious. People liked it. And I played with it, I handled it, and it was cool, it was fun. And I was like, wow, I can really see that DNA that Olympus carried from the film over to the digital camera. So it isn't that it's something unique to what Nikon's done, but it does exist. And what I want to call out is I went back and started looking at some of Nikon's DSLRs and looking at a lot of their new Z-mount cameras. This really is the first time that they said, you know what, let's go back to the roots. Let's go back to where we came from. So I'm not going to sit here and say Nikon's had it all along, but I have to appreciate it when it shows up, because there's so much about analog cameras that we love as filmmakers. There's so much about film cameras and the analog experience that we love as photographers. When you pick up an old film camera, there's this weight to it. And there's this immediate bond that you found. There's this immediate bond that you form with the camera because of the metal, the tactility, the grooves in the metal, the way the dials click. And I've said this about the ZF in a video I did not so long ago when I reviewed the experience of using it. This Z, my F2, I'm sorry, my Nikon F2, one of the very things I love about using it as a camera is that shutter feel, that shutter sound. I don't know how Nikon, it's like on the ZF, it's got almost the same feel as the Nikon F. Like, I think that's so special. And I don't know what Nikon is doing here, and I like it. And I hope that they continue this, not only for the ZF line, but I hope that they can find a way to dwindle this down into some smaller bodies, some more compact bodies. I really like what they're doing here. And what's really piqued my interest is Nikon, from what I can tell, operating the ZF, using it, putting it through its paces. I think it's a very capable camera. I think it's a very cutting edge camera. There's a lot about it that just works. And I know Nikon's got this cult following, and every time I check in on a Nikon camera, on the Nikon ecosystem, people are generally happy, right? And there's a lot to be said for that. And what's interesting is the way they treat this DNA, this form factor, this tactility. It makes me wonder, what else do they do this with? What else are they knocking it out of the ballpark? What else do they do that's just a delight for their ecosystem and their users? Now I'm curious. I think Nikon is on the map for me, and I'm gonna start to give Nikon a serious look and really assess it and assess the ecosystem from a direction of a professional. Because I've got some very recent quarrels with Sony in the professional world. And I'm gonna assess it as a creative tool. And I'm curious to see what Nikon brings to the table, because I believe each ecosystem brings their own things to the table, right? You know, with Sony, you've got that clinical perfection. With Fuji, you've got that look and feel. With Olympus, you've got that versatility of functionality, but the form factor, it can't be beat. And the size of the lenses and for travel and all that good stuff. And then Canon, I don't know, I'm trolling, I know what Canon's about. But I'm curious to see what else makes Nikon special. And I think it's an amazing thing for an outsider like myself to sit back and notice decades of differences between their products, yet still the DNA is there. Kudos to Nikon in a big way. If you liked the video, I'm happy to hear that. Consider leaving a like, consider subscribing. I do content like this all the time, very thoughtful. I like to say, time is the most valuable resource that we have. And I do not take it lightly that you've shared some of it here with me today. Thank you so much for that. In the description down below, you can find links to all the gear I use. You can find links to my social media, the entire thing. My name is Ramon. I'm out of here. Peace.